Weird Realities explores the paranormal, preternatural, and supernatural worlds that surround us. Here we delve into those topics that challenge us to think outside the limitations of realism, where we test the boundaries of imagination and are forced to think outside the confines and restrictions of what is normal. We are the creators, the writers, the artists, and the insane. Welcome to our Weird Realities.
Good evening. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Real Talk. I'm one of the hosts, Scott Baker. Jennifer couldn't make it tonight. She claims she was not feeling good, but I think she was abducted by aliens and doesn't want to admit it. Tonight we got a very special guest. We have David Reuben Aslin. He is the author of the Ian McDermott Paranormal Investigator series, four books so far. And he's also the writer, director, and star of the werewolf version of one of his books, Harmony Falls. Good to have you, David. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate being here. Thank you, Scott.
All right. So, as I was saying to you earlier, the show is mostly talking to novelists who have become screenwriters or screenwriters to get an idea, because there's so many of us that would love to see our books make it to the screen. And you have one of your books already about to come out as a movie. Tell us about it.
Well, it's actually quite a story of itself. I was approached quite a number of years ago, by a indie filmmaker out of LA named Boris Novak, really great guy. And at that time, he talked to me about the possibility of making turning my novel Loop Guru, The Beasts of Harmony Falls, into a movie. He thought it might make a good movie and transition well. And but anyway, so we started a dialogue, and at that time, all those years ago, he was busy with projects, I was busy doing some things, and we just could never gel time wise. And so it kind of just, as things that you talk about, if you don't go forward, they just at some point they just kind of fizzle out, and it did, and that was fine. But strangely, a number of years now, coming, fast forward to say just very few years ago, about 9 months, about 9 months before the COVID thing hit. Out of the blue, we just started talking again. And at that time, we'd actually put together a little bit of we packaged the idea, kind of the presentations and such like that, because he had a couple of interested parties in basically bankrolling or financing, being financial producers. And one of them, I'm not going to mention names, but kind of a big shot out of Palm Springs. And it looked like everything was really, really, on the go on this thing. And, we had spent just countless of hours on the phone going through this and that, working through budgets, proposed ideas. And anyways, when we got to the point where it looked like something was maybe really going to happen, because this one particular financier was very interested, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, it just tanked our idea. I mean, it was like a submarine hitting you midship. I mean, we sank. The whole idea just sank. And it was especially frustrating that we'd put together so much information on how to go forward with this thing. And so that just loomed in my head. I just thought about it. And then one day, I think my wonderful wife, Denise, I think she just said, well, what's keeping you from doing it? And I'm like, well, obviously, financial concerns and everything else. But, well, who knows? I mean, we've put together this thing, and so we started thinking. And my son, who was a musician, he and I was very good friends with a cinematographer out of Portland, Johnny Christopherson, and so we just thought, well, let's go to Portland, Oregon, and let's have a conversation with him, which we did. We went to dinner, and he loved the idea, and he was just like, let's do this thing. And so next thing I know, we're getting some small, um, limited investors involved, and we just kind of ran with the thing ourselves. And so I quickly finished converting the novel into a screenplay, and we hired. We were we're non-SAG-AFTRA. We did it, completely Indian, small, but we did have a couple of professional actors involved, and then a lot of what I would call semi-professional actors. Other words, amateur actors, but that ones who had a lot of theater experience, collegiate and such like that. And and then I placed an ad in the Northwest Actors thing. I can't remember the name of it. Some screen backstage Northwest or something, some publication like that online. And I ended up getting my leading man, my Ian McDermott, through them. He's out of Portland, Oregon. He was just Nick Diattore, fantastic actor. Has done some things. And then also we got a lady named Emma Pace through the same way. And then other actors I got just through personal connections. And a friend of mine, Don Balderramos, who has been in a plethora of movies and TV shows and everything else as a supporting actor over many, many decades. Because of him being my personal friend, he flew up from LA on his own dime and did a cameo in the movie, and that was great. He's been on, oh my gosh, he's been opposite. Uh, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the actor, the Born Identity, and everybody
Oh,
knows him. He's a household name.
Damon.
Household name. Matt
Matt
Damon,
Damon.
thank you. I mean, man, my brain. Anyways, in Suburbicon, yeah, he was opposite Matt Damon in Suburbicon. He was on, he's done stuff with Christina Ricci in the last couple of years, and just I could go on and on. So his acting resume was longer than a giraffe's neck. So having him connected was a real benefit. And anyways, we just plugged forward. So once we finished it, and because the movie's actually been finished for pretty close to a year, we have not released it yet on purpose. It's all been done purposely because we've sent it out to just a cornucopia, plethora, whatever word, big number of um, film festivals, both domestic and international, and hoping to garner as many accolades, placing this in first place, second place, whatever, in different categories as we can. And it's actually done quite well. Probably the most prestigious award it's won so far was we won the best horror movie at the Chicago International Indie Film Awards, which that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that
We
is.
took a second place in the same category in a one that's like just in Prague, I guess, and we've taken the best monster in one of them. I should have all these things written down, but I don't. But we're hoping that it'll do a little bit more, get some more laurels. That's the word I've been looking for, more laurels. The more of these little laurel things you put on your movie, won this, won that, place here, place that,
Exactly.
selected here, that, obviously for marketing purposes is a good thing. But we're at a position now that we will probably act as our own um, uh, distributors, and be looking at getting it on uh, streaming services and things like that, and then maybe producing some DVDs, Blu-rays, and things like that here in the relatively near future. Obviously, at one time we were hoping that maybe a big time distributor out there would knock on our door if we got enough laurels and things like that. But so far, we may end up just having to carry the football again, and that's not even a frightening thing, because that's what we've done that's what we've done the entire process ourselves. And we've actually, what I'm really excited about, and I'm wanting to talk about it at least as much as Harmony Falls, is we're already hip deep in doing our second full-length feature film, Red Tide: Vampires of the Morgue, based on my second Ian McDermott book. And I believe that this, I've always I've always said to everybody that's followed it all, that I believe that Harmony Falls is going to crack open a few windows, but I do believe that Red Tide is going to kick the front door in, and I believe that with all my heart. We have assembled a stellar group of actors and support people, and we've got we've got this gal named Natasha, who does FX, gore FX. Like, I mean, there's nobody in Hollywood that could, without a big team behind them, do anything that she can't do. She is absolutely phenomenal. I even have a story connected to that I can talk about later. But anyway, so I've been rambling. I need to let you get some words in edgewise here.
No, we like to hear what you have to say. Before we go back to Harmony Falls, got to ask the question. Your vampire movie.
Mm-hmm.
Do they sparkle?
Yes.
Do they teenage girls? Do they wear fluffy shirts and like, oh, I hate people?
My vampires absolutely do not sparkle. We can have a t-shirt made. My vampires are bad, evil, blood-sucking, bloodlustful, demonic, nasty things. And one thing that's really kind of fun, probably the most fun that we're going to have, we've only shot 2 scenes so far, and the scenes coming up that we're going to be filming here pretty soon, we're going to film most of it this summer, are going to be just a blast. We're much of the movie takes place in a nightclub, and there's a nightclub in a little town called Kelso, Washington, called Erebus. I guess Erebus means some kind of demon or something, but it's a alternative lifestyle, alternative music nightclub, which was perfect for my nightclub in my book. Is called the Morgue. And the Morgue was inspired. The whole idea was inspired to me by a trip I took to New Orleans, and myself and some others probably partied a little bit harder than we should have up and down Bourbon Street, and we found ourselves way off the beaten path. I mean, certainly in an area that tourists dare not tread, and we saw this very, very dark, seedy nightclub that was just way off the beaten path, called the Morgue. And it's no longer in business, but it was, we're I don't know, 15 years ago or whatever this has been. And so naturally our curiosity and our state of lack of sanity, our inebriated states, I guess, we went into this seedy nightclub. And we go in there, and I mean, immediately, I mean, there are vampire wannabe role-playing, cosplay, whatever you want to call them. But I mean to tell you that the things that we saw going on in this nightclub, and it was quite large. It had kind of winded around all over the place, very dark, and all these curtains, hiding different things going on and stuff. And there was definitely bloodletting going on, host and donor, and all the stuff. And so, naturally, our demented mind, my sick mind, led us to the bar, and we naturally ordered Bloody Marys. But, and to this day, I swear that was the thickest, saltiest Bloody Mary that I've ever had in my life. And so I don't even know. I'd be positive that I wouldn't do that again. Um, but um, but that it stuck in my mind, and so so it was the catalyst, and I actually call the nightclub in my book and in the movie the Morgue, and it is a vampire goth undergrounds, bikers. There are hookers, there's drugs, there's sex, there's anything and everything that you could go on in this extreme alternative lifestyle nightclub. And so that is going to be a blast because I found this club that literally it's actually more like the morgue than the morgue in New Orleans was. I mean, this thing was just perfect. And so when we filmed there, boy, we've got a group of actors that are they're a group of them, not all. I mean, we got a whole bunch of a mix of everything, but one group of these vampire um, role playing type individuals called the Deadly Darlings. They do um, conventions and things like that. Fright Fest, Frightmare type conventions as vampires. And of course, these people have, actual dentured fangs and stuff made by people that take the full molds and the whole bit, and their clothing. I mean, I couldn't even purchase for these people superior outfits. And of course, we've got all kinds of gothic clothing and Victorian clothing for some of the actors and whatnot. And that the mix of the Deadly Darlings and my actor vampires and hookers and everything else that's in the mix, the bikers, you name it, that's going to be in this nightclub. It's it's going to make for some really, really interesting cinema. And we've got some fantastic special effects planned. And 99%, maybe 99.8% of the special effects are going to be physical effects. I have a guy that's really gifted in doing, some CGI effects and things like that. In other words, if you fire guns, he can do the flame bursts, and all that kind of stuff and whatnot. So there will be some, special, CGI, but extremely limited. And so we've had the fun of getting really creative of how you do special effects with, old school, but yet have it look really dynamic. And there's a texture of old school blood spews and squibs and everything else that CGI just doesn't give you that same thing. When you do it right, when you do it physical and you do it right, I mean, it's amazing. And so that's what we've really been concentrating on. So again, I apologize for the diarrhea of the mouth and all that, but
do not apologize.
I'm just jazzed because we filmed this Sunday. The first filming of the movie Red Tide was this Sunday, and never in my life have I had a day that has to do with filming a movie go so perfect. I mean, there's always something that you have to deal with, or some buddies or whatever, and it was just beautiful. And if that sets the tone of how this whole thing's going to go, this is going to be an absolute awesome movie, but it's going to be awesome fun to make.
Now, going back to Harmony Falls, I do want to ask a couple of questions about Red Tide.
Yeah, please.
You said Robert Novak reached out to you about the turning your novel into a movie, right?
Now, you say his name again. I didn't hear you.
Robert Nowak or Novak?
Okay, well, we got a little bit of a sound delay once in a while between you and I, but his name is Boris, just like Boris Karloff.
Oh,
Boris, okay. Boris Novak.
All right. So, how did Boris?
He's Slavic.
Okay, did he read your book and like it and thought, man, this would make a great movie?
Yeah, it's one of those guys. He and I have actually never met face to face, and yet we have chatted and we've been Facebook friends of all things for so many years now that I swear to you, I know him better than I know a lot of people that I see on a semi-regular basis. We were just on the phone with each other last night. He, and he eventually he's probably going to move out to this area, but anyways, he heard about me and that book back when I would say I had my 15 seconds of fame. When I first released Loop Guru, it the and this is, and I was an indie, and this is actually that book what got me signed to Permuted Press. Okay, it was the buzz that they came to me because of this book, but it took off like nothing else I've ever done. It shot out of the cannon. It shot off like a bullet, and it went to number one. For almost a week straight. It was the number one best-selling werewolf novel on Amazon. And
Awesome.
and interestingly, well, and here's where the fame thing comes in. Interestingly, Anne Rice, who's famous for the Vampire Chronicles and all that. She's deceased. Was a wonderful person, and rest in peace, Anne. But she had just come out with a werewolf book, and I'm probably going to misquote, so I apologize ahead of time, but I do believe it was something like The Wolf's Curse or something like that, something close to that, if that's not right. And my book would be number one, hers would be number two. An hour later, hers is number one, mine's number two. And it went like this for days. And it was funny. Or maybe she would go down to third and I go to the fourth and back to first and back, but it was like she and I were, and I'm a nobody, here this is Anne Rice. I'm, less than nobody. And, but we had this battle going on, and I'm pretty sure that she became aware of it because years later I ran into her at a convention in Las Vegas, a horror convention thing. I ran into her son, Christopher Rice, and he and I talked about that, and he thought that he in fact that she had made mention of this funny thing of who is this guy, but because of that, I started getting some attention, and I was getting phone calls from 2 or 3 different publishing houses, yada yada, because of that. And so that's kind of, and then Boris, who just follows authors and movie stuff and whatnot, that garnered his attention, and so that's how we kind of initially hooked up, I guess would be the best description.
If you're going to be in a battle for number one, it's good to do it with somebody like Anne Rice.
And it continued though. It continued to stay in the Hot 100. It continued to stay in the under 100 in the Hot 100 for several months, and so that was a fun ride.
Jennifer, welcome. The aliens I see returned you early.
Hello, how are you guys?
All right.
So sorry
David,
about
hi, Jennifer.
This is Jennifer, my co-host.
Hi, Jennifer. I hear you're not feeling very well.
I haven't been. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm late.
You shouldn't even be probably trying to talk. You should be cuddled up with a warm blanket and sitting in front of the
Well, Jennifer felt she had to come on the show. The show needed some charm and some good looks. That's why she's here.
Oh, you're too sweet, Scott. Hi, everybody. Hi, Landa. Hi, Ashel, everybody.
So I wanted to jump in and ask you another question now. And this is like one of the big ones for the show. How difficult was it? You've written, about 6, 7 books in total?
That's really close. Yeah, 7 or 8, I think. Yeah, that's
all right. 7 or 8 books. How difficult is it to go from writing a novel to writing a screenplay?
I knew you were going to ask this question. I really did, and I thought, well, because I only have a big head because I'm fat. I don't have a big inflated ego of myself on any level, nor should I. So what I'm about to say, I don't want it to sound weird, but I have read over and over and over again. It's tough to make the transition between writing a novelist or writing a screenplay. It's tough for screenplay writers to write novels. It's tough for novelists to write screenplays. And for me, it was just easy. It was just easy. The reason I believe it was easy is twofold. One, nobody knows the story better than me because they were my stories. It's not like I was just suddenly writing a new screenplay. I think it'd be more difficult if I was just given a topic. You came to me tomorrow and said, write about chupacabras. Let's go and go. Because now I got to completely invent the whole thing all at once. Whereas I was just taking an existing story and shrinking it to something that can be told in 2 hours or less. So that was part of the ease, I believe. And the other part is I have been just a huge fan and consumer and watcher of horror movies, especially in the genres of like the older traditional monsters, werewolves, Dracula, yada yada. So and watching so many movies, because I mean I'm so old that I remember when the Dead Sea was just not feeling very well. So I've just so I've seen the classic, the Universal Studios, the Hammer films, blah blah blah, so many times that I kind of understood pacing, and I kind of understood where you can only go dialogue just so far, and knowing that you're trying to tell an entire story, not in 300 pages, which would be 6 hours of film or 8 hours of film. So I kind of understood the parameters, and so what I did was I got my hands on some screenplays, and I started reading screenplays, that especially the ones that were related to movies that I already knew about. And so I saw where they were doing what they were doing and how they were doing it and why they were doing it. It was pretty transparent. So basically, I just took my story, I just emulated what 6 jillion people have done before me, and how they use and then I also read that the average screenplay takes a screenplay writer somewhere around 6 to 9 months or something like that. And I wrote Harmony Falls in 3 weeks. I wrote Red Tide in probably 6 weeks, and I don't feel like that I cut that many corners or anything. I don't believe that either one of the screenplays, if I would have taken a year to write it, would have been really any different, because because I just set myself down and I'm just like, I'm banging this out, and then I'm rereading it and I'm rewriting it and I'm rereading it and rewriting it, having a couple of other beta people and yada yada. And I just did it. I just took it upon myself that I said, what if somebody's holding a gun to your head and they said, you got to do this, and it's got to be good. And if you don't do it inside a month, you're going to die, And so I kind of took that attitude. And so, I don't know. I'm not trying to belittle the process at all. There's another thing. I mean, I hear so many writers go through, and it's just painful to listen to their stories, because I have a lot of author friends. Some of them are far better authors than I'll ever be. In fact, I don't really consider myself a writer as much as a storyteller, because I'm certainly not classically trained in everything, but I think I can spin a good yarn. But the I hear so many authors struggle with occasionally with writer's block. And for me, I have the exact opposite problem. I'm 12 stories deep all the time. I can't even sit down, and because by the time I think about this one, then I think about that one, then I think about that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. And I just haven't had the time, especially the last couple of years, because of deciding to be in the movie making thing. Because I'll tell you what, my hat's off to anybody that can make a movie and write a book at the same time. Now that's a whole nother story. I don't know how a person can switch their brain to that. And then, and then of course other people that really are amaze me are the ones that can write multiple novels simultaneously. I know two different authors that can write 3 books at the same time. And to me, that's crazy incredible. I couldn't do it.
It's insane.
But
I do.
anyways,
I was going to
anyways, I apologize for just rambling, but I just never felt. I mean, I feel as comfortable writing a novel as I do writing a screenplay, and vice versa.
Now, how did you wind up becoming the star? You are one of the stars in your movie, right?
You're asking if I'm a star in the movie?
Yeah. Do you have a starring role in the movie?
I wouldn't even call myself a comet, but
okay. All right. What about how did you wind up becoming the director?
Well, let's put it this way. I in Harmony Falls, I do play a character, but a very small role. Okay, a very small role. I would say more than a cameo, but certainly not anywhere like not even in the hemisphere of even like a major supporting. I mean, it's just I'm probably in the movie 5 minutes, maybe. And I'm also a character that nobody has identified, not once yet, not one. I'm actually there's a drunk with his head down and he's in handcuffs and the whole bit, being pulled out of the police station in a little town, and that's actually me, and I'm shaking and everything, out of the drunk take. Nobody's ever discovered that that's me, but I play the owner of a tavern, which was actually not a far stretch for me, so that was actually good casting. But this movie now, and I didn't have very many lines. I mean, my lines were so simple and so easy to deliver, and I got to hit somebody over the head with a baseball bat, and that's always fun. But
hopefully it was a prop.
That's another bat. Story. Yeah. It was a prop bat, but I got a story to you about prop bats, my friend, because boy howdy. But anyways, I can tell you firsthand that you can knock somebody out with a prop bat. I can tell you that. That's a true story. But anyways, this next movie that we're working on now, Red Tide, I actually play the character Clayton Collins, who is a very, very self-controlled vampire. He is probably the closest thing that I have to a good vampire, though he's not good. He's just controlled. He hides in plain sight as a horror author. If you follow my books far enough, they don't come out and say it, but they suggest that he might have been Edgar Allan Poe. He might have been William Shakespeare. He might have been the person that whispered in the ear of Mary Shelley. He might even have been Bram Stoker. It never comes out and makes any claims, but there's a lot of inference. And so what he's done for many, 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 many years is he has been involved in the writings of macabre writings and things like that. Today, in fact, is his name Clayton Collins. He took Collins from Barnabas Collins of Dark Shadows Dark Shadows, because he thought that was a cool last name and yada yada. But because he has to change his identity as time goes on. But he's become interested in this character. He's become interested in Ian McDermott because Ian McDermott, being a paranormal investigator, he kind of Clayton Collins wiggles his way into Clayton's world by suggesting that, hey, there's not a lot of money in paranormal investigation. What if I was your benefactor, but in turn you give me fodder for my stories from your investigations? So it's kind of a quid pro quo kind of arrangement. And but what unbeknownst to Ian in the beginning is Clayton's not the kind of person that you want to have him get his tentacles into you, in which he does. He's very smooth about it. But anyways, I play Clayton Collins, and what makes it to me a little bit fun is one of my books I wrote. I wrote a comedy. I wrote a zombie horror comedy called Brains, Bacon, Beer, and Zombies. And if you look at who that was written by, it says it was written by David Reuben Aslin and Clayton Collins.
Oh,
Clayton
yeah.
Collins is me. Clayton Collins is me. And so that was fun for me to play as an author, an identity that I created.
So you took over the directorship because you wanted to have the control of the movie? The producers wanted you to run it?
You know, if it would have gone the more traditional route, if Boris, you know, if the COVID wouldn't have happened and if it would have been picked up, you know, by some, then I would have been out. You know, I'd have been, he's the writer, shut up and sit over there, writer, you know. But but since I had the opportunity to run it myself, I thought, you know what? I guess I'm just I guess I am arrogant enough to think that nobody knows the story more intimately than I do, because it came from my mind. So I figured, you know what? I can direct this because I have a vision of the sweep and scope of what I want, and I think that I did a reasonable job in Harmony Falls, but I believe that I've learned a lot, and I think that I think I've almost earned a little bit of director's chops, and I think that this second movie is going to be a lot. I'm going to be better at what I did this go around.
Okay.
And but so I guess in a nutshell, I am the writer, the director, one of the producers, the executive producer, you know, that's that sort of thing. But you know, we're such my little film company, Crazy Like a Fox Entertainment LLC, Crazy Like a Fox Entertainment. Everybody connected to Crazy Like a Fox wears many hats. I have to because I'm bald, but everybody wears many. And actually, normally this would be like really gray and like be white, but because my character, we dyed, and I shaved it off. We dyed my beard and my hair and everything black or dark brown for the other day for this show. Excuse me, my character. But anyways, the long and the short of it is there's most of the people connected wear many hats. Now, my son Mo Aslin, who he's a musician. He's got a band called Ghost Eyes, and they do alternative music, and they've actually played at this club that this movie's going to be filmed at. He's really the talent behind the whole thing. My son is the cinematographer. He is an associate director, though I'm the chief director. He is lighting engineer. He wrote all of the music scores, and not just, I mean, literally all of the music scores for Harmony Falls. We'll be doing it for this movie as well. He wrote literally every piece of the orchestrated music, and it's very orchestra related. And he wrote all the the violins, the cellos, the bass, the this, all the different string and horns and everything. In each individual, even though it was done digitally, the music was created digitally. He actually wrote out all the music for all the so it could be performed by an orchestra. He came up through orchestra and then later transitioned from being a stand-up bass player to an electric bass to also guitar, yada yada. But my son Mo is extremely talented. He was actually the second camera. I told you that on Harmony Falls, our cameraman Johnny Christopherson out of Portland, Oregon, but Johnny also acted a little bit in the movie, and whenever he was acting, Mo was behind the camera, and Mo had actually taken classes and whatnot and cinematography and things like that. So for him making the transition, that was another thing. We decided if we were going to go forward with this movie thing, that we were going to do it 100% in-house. So what do? I got crazy. We went out, we bought a very sexy camera and all the lighting gear you can imagine, and boom mics and recording thing. I mean, we kind of went crazy. And so now, whereas Harmony Falls was probably, we did everything except for the cinematography end of it. And the cinematographer, he was also the editor and things like that. We're going to be 100% in-house on Red Tide. I mean, we are a genuine little movie company. We own everything it takes to make a movie. We've got.
Now, question: you mentioned that you're doing some special effects, real life special effects in nighttime, Red Tide. Mm-hmm. What about the special effects in Harmony Falls? Because that's got to be. Do you show the werewolf changing?
We do a little bit. We didn't get to the point where CGI, where you see, the bones creaking and the hands starting to extend and the hair is growing and, the jaw dislocating and all that stuff like an American Werewolf in London or something. But what we did do, if you're familiar with the movie, Dog Soldiers, it's a European werewolf movie, whereas every time the guy's changing, he would duck under a table, then his hands would come up and maybe there'd be longer fingernails, then he'd disappear and he'd come back up and now maybe he's a little bit further along, then finally, you hear all this popping and crackling and finally the werewolf stands up. That's kind of how we did this one, but with like doors instead of tables, how they do that one. Our werewolf suit though, it's really cool. We had a Hollywood special effects company out of LA hand make our werewolf suit. It was very expensive. Took them 4 months to make. It was obviously like the chest pieces and a lot of pieces were made from molds, but then all of the hair, the entire 6 foot 3 inch tall suit, it's completely, all the hair was laid in by hand and everything. And of course, it was airbrushed and all this stuff. And it's in my basement. It's actually kind of freaky to go down there at nighttime, but and by the way, we will be making a sequel to the Harmony Falls. Return to Harmony Falls. We'll start filming after Red Tide is done. But that was a lot of fun to have that suit made, and that of itself is a little bit of a story. My first actor, who was going to be the person in the suit, Brandon Wine, in the movie, he plays the character as John Chastel Givaudan. If anybody's familiar with the Beast of Givaudan, there's anyway, that's a whole other thing, but so maybe somebody out there's listening. He was going to be not only the human being before he transforms into morphs into this beast, but when we were filming, we rented this cabin way out in the woods, this creepy cabin on Silver Lake, Washington, just outside of Longview, Kelso, Washington. And it's a beautiful lake, but this cabin is just, oh my God, it's so cool. And he's supposed to be the guy that, transforms into the beast. Well, we're filming this at like 3 a.m. or something, his part. And we put this suit on him, which he'd had on before, but always during the daytime. No, never occurred to anybody. And of course, you got the blackout hood before they put the helmet on and whatnot. And the visibility for the actor is extremely small. At nighttime, at 3 o'clock in the morning, with all this stuff on, he got vertigo. And I mean, he got motion sickness or whatever you want to call it, so bad, so severely that it had to come off. He couldn't handle it. So here we are in the 11th hour with a suit. So we ended up having this one kid, Garrett Payton, who was one of my son Mo's assistants, kind of like you'd call him. I guess you'd call him a gaffer and also a boom mic guy and all that. He goes, hey, Dave, because all my friends call me Dave. He goes, hey, Dave, I can do that. And I'm like, really? Yeah, because I mean, we'd spend all this time with Brandon learning, how to do it physically, the physical acting and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. We put this on this kid, I call him a kid. He's probably 25, 24, right in that area. And yeah. And he puts the suit on and he becomes this physical beast.
Yeah.
And because of his youth and everything, he didn't have to see. He could almost like feel his way wherever he's. I mean, he just like had night vision or something, and he was phenomenal. So we ended up having a different person inside the suit than is the guy that looks like he is the guy that transforms into the monster, and that all happened at the 11th hour, and it was actually one of the greatest bad things to ever happen, because what this young man could do as far as leaping off porches and moving like a werewolf jackrabbit was phenomenal. And he was able to do things physically that I never would have even asked Brandon, who was just shy of 40, and to do. And so it was just a great thing. Just one of those little weird stories, I guess.
Jennifer, I've been hogging the mic. Do you have anything you want to ask?
No, you have not been hogging the mic. I'm so sorry. I'm just I'm listening to your stories. I think it's fascinating about having the person step in for him. And you said he was like 25. I mean, not a kid.
And he never had. I mean, the suit is big and it's cumbersome and it's heavy and it is hot. I mean, fact is, we filmed. We filmed for about almost a year with that one, and we were filming in the dead of winter, where the only person comfortable in the whole area is the person that had that suit on. And we also filmed in over 100-degree weather in the summertime, that even at nighttime when we were filming was still probably 80. One night we were filming up at Mount St. Helens, and in Washington State, Mount St. Helens, the volcano thing. Yeah. Just outside of maybe 20 miles from the mountain itself, in a town called Amboy, up there in the woods. Even at nighttime, because that day they'd hit a record. They hit an all-time record for the town of Cougar, Washington, and Amboy. It was, and we're talking elevation, I don't know, way up in the mountains there, and it was 102 that day. And so it got down to a chilly 85 or so by the time we're filming. And this poor actor, poor Garrett, in this werewolf suit for hours on end, take on end. I mean, by the time we got that suit off him, I mean, he looked like somebody had been hosed down. I mean, it was unreal. We were actually more worried, and one of my biggest concerns for the actor inside that suit was up there, and I'm not even kidding. I was afraid somebody was going to shoot him. We're up there in the middle of the wilds, man. Yeah. And you'll hear gunshots going off. People, whether they're hunting, and I don't know what hunting would be going on that time of year, but you'd certainly hear people shooting their weapons, and often bam, boom, boom, and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what if somebody thinks that he's Bigfoot or something? They think they bagged the big one, And so, that was always weighing on my mind, that I was going to get somebody killed. But
you would have had a realistic death scene.
So. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, this suit looks so real that, if you were driving in your 4-wheel drive truck up there and looking around, and you saw him up on that mountain ridge we had him, hey, there is no way in the world that you wouldn't have thought he was real, because many times all of our camera gear and whatnot was in a position that could not be seen, but the monster would be up on the edge of these cliff edges and stuff. And yeah, I was literally thinking, man,
the special effects in this sound awesome.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. We made all kinds of really cool blood squibs, and you utilize what you've got. You use your head. You go, how am I going to do this? And in one scene where the kid gets throat torn out by the beast and whatnot, we took this tubing, went up his back and around, we taped under here, and we had a bicycle pump full of blood. So it's we just we'd come up with ideas that how are you going to do this, how are you going to do that, We didn't have even like the exploding bags and with the little exploding thing. So how you do that? You get a Ziploc baggie, and and the deal there, and have somebody go ooh like that, and then boom, it explodes of the blood, and then you add the sound effects later. So we just we spent a lot of time just being inventive on how things work, and we really had a fun time doing Foley effects, the sound effects that Mo and I, my son and I, we just sat in the room, and whatever we needed, whether it was the sound of the werewolf biting in and crunching through bone and tissue and everything. I mean, we were biting into raw potatoes and crunching cucumbers and with microphones. I mean, you name it. We probably destroyed more fruit and vegetables. And celery's great, but real crisp celery. But we would go through different things and record it and listen it back. And then of course Mo, he could lower the tone, raise the tone, slow it down, and things like that. But it's amazing to me when you watch that, because I can watch the movie now, and when there's something going on with a big crunching of the bone, I'm thinking, man, I almost dislocated my mouth on that big potato that I was crunching down.
You watch the movie and want to have a salad. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when is the movie coming out? Because you said it's in post-production right now.
Now you're talking about Harmony Falls?
Harmony Falls, yes.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yes. When is Harmony Falls going to be released?
Okay, Harmony Falls is 100% done. It's 100% done. And we will probably release it to some different streaming services this fall. Yeah, that's probably. Now, when I say 100% done, I accidentally overstated one thing. It's 100% done, except we haven't had it closed caption for the hearing impaired yet. And we will do that, and we'll have to hire a service to do that. By federal law, all movies, that whether they go to TV, streaming service, whatever the case may be, they don't have to be done in multiple languages. That's up to you, and that there's advantages to that, but that's not the law. The law is, though, it has to be it has to have that feature of closed captioning, and so we have to have that done yet. But aside from that, it's
done. Now you also said you're working on Red Tide, the vampire movie.
Mm-hmm.
The next movie will be a sequel to Harmony Falls. You've got 2 more Ian McDermott books, one with zombies and one with sort of a Jack the Ripper character. Are you planning on making those into movies?
I don't know, and I mean that sincerely, because they're both of those would be pretty expensive to make. I don't know that we could do it in-house. Would I consider selling the rights to a big company to do it? Yeah, of course I'd entertain any possibilities, but the one story takes place in New Orleans. I haven't got the budget to hey everybody, let's go to New Orleans for 6 months. Hey, nor do I have the ability to really create effectively the Victorian age, with all the buggies and the British look, and you know what I'm saying, the Whitechapel district and all that. We just don't have that kind of budget, so those are more difficult. Now I could get creative and do some relocating and things like that, but truly what I'm looking at is after we do Return to Harmony Falls, we may do another vampire movie. I'm considering the idea of making a movie called Salazar, which is be a little bit more centered on the main antagonist, the main mean vampire guy. But earlier I said chupacabra, and that is a real possibility. I'm thinking about doing a twist on that. And believe it or not, see, my wife and I, we live out here in the Pacific Northwest. We live in a coastal community. I'm right on the ocean. Literally, the ocean is just 2 baseball throws away, in a coastal community in Washington State called Ocean Shores. And believe it or not, around this area, and I don't know how or why, I'm not a botanist or biologist or anything, but there are areas that are swamp-like, that do not look like the typical fir trees of Washington State. They don't even look like you're in Washington State. There are areas all around this Grays Harbor area. If you go off the beaten path on these little tributary rivers and such, look exactly like you're in the bayous of Louisiana or something. I mean, it's crazy. They literally look exact. So I'm thinking about doing maybe or the bayous of Texas, or some, south. So I'm thinking about doing a spin on the Chupacabra story. And I actually started an Ian McDermott story that is revolved around that. So it kind of would be a continuation of what was going to be book number 5 of the Ian McDermott's stories that was supposed to in the book take place in Louisiana, but I could easily film that around here, believe it or not, and you wouldn't have a clue that it wasn't filmed in, the Florida Everglades or something. I mean, it's just that wild. We have these just areas that are so out of place looking.
Jennifer, we're going to have to wind down. Do you have any more questions?
Are you going to have the same, Mo's friend play the werewolf again and return to Harmony Falls?
I don't know the answer to that, Jennifer, because I don't know that I could get him to do it again. It's a miserable thing to ask of somebody. The weight and the heat and everything of the deal. It's possible.
Miserable. I've got to be honest.
It's possible. Yeah, and I have in our budget $10 that I'm willing to pay him. Not a day. I'm talking about for the entire filming of the thing. I'll give him a crisp $10 bill. I swear to God, I'll do that. You can hold me to that. So we budgeted for that. But I don't know. He might want something outrageous like $20 or something. So who knows?
He might want a lot of water. Yeah.
Hey, we poured water down that guy. It's I've only had the hood on. Okay, I'm too large. I'm too big and fat to even get in the suit. But I've had the hood on. And I'm going to tell you right now, inside 1 minute, you want that hood off, or the head of the beast, I should say, the head, because it's not fun. It looks like, it looks fun. And then you put it on, you're like, this is not fun.
So, David, your movie will be coming out maybe this fall. Any idea when Red Tide will be coming out?
I think that we're going to be a lot faster on not only production, but post-production. And so I believe that Red Tide will be available to the general public. I'm just, don't hold me to anything, but I'm going to say 10, 12 months from now, maybe sooner. If my son Mo, he used to I was being more optimistic about faster timelines, and then I kind of backed off from that. And then today he came up here to visit with us. He lives in a town called Longview, Washington, and he was like, "Wow, if things keep moving this fast, who knows? This could be done in half the time that we originally thought it might be." So we'll see how things continue to go.
And where can we find your books?
Amazon. I guess there are other ways. I mean, there's other, basically, if you were to Google my name, David Reuben Aslin, if you Googled my name, it's going to come up with all these different books, just books and blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's all these different sites that you can buy through. Amazon's as good as any as far as financially. But if you've got something, if there's a reason that you don't like Amazon, that's certainly other ways of getting it. They're my primary, I would say, but there's all kinds of ways. So like I said, if you just Google David Reuben Aslin, Reuben spelled like a Reuben sandwich, Reuben. My last name's Aslin. You know what? You're one of the few people without me having to do any corrections that pronounced my last name correctly, Aslin. You nailed it. Very good. Thank you. And I think I've been called all kinds of names, so that you could call it. You could have really missed the mark, and it certainly wouldn't have hurt my feelings. But
Well, David,
it almost sounds like Aslan the lion from Narnia.
Well, David, thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure talking with you. Let me know when the film comes out, because we also do a Watching Weird where we review horror movies. We'd love to review that one.
That would be very, very fun, and I certainly will. And this has been my honor, and I really appreciate you having me on your show. And Jennifer, I hope that you get feeling better real soon.
Thank you very much, David. Thanks so much for coming on. I do appreciate it.
You both have a wonderful evening. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to just sign off. So everybody out there, like, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, because David was a great guest tonight. Jennifer's a great host, and you put up with me. So thank you all. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. We'll hopefully have another special guest for you then. Ciao, everyone, and don't let the werewolves bite.